Hello, everybody. It's John Browning with the Building Your Life podcast. We're back here again today with a special guest, David Neagle. Did I pronounce that right, David?
Yeah, Nagel like bagel. You got it.
All right, very cool. All right, so you're a little bit colder than I am. We're down here in warm, sunny West Palm Beach, and where are you located again?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. So is it? But it's getting warmer there,
It's
right?
warm, yeah. Yeah, the humidity came up a lot today. It's supposed to be 80 today. So we're getting there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So not so bad. Not as bad as it looks like Texas and Ohio going to get some severe weather, and we're all going to see that come through again. I tell you, the weather this past year has been incredible, but the good news is if you have the right mindset, the weather doesn't matter, right? And
That's
that's
right.
a little
My
bit.
mentor, my mentor used to say to me, there is no good or bad weather, there's just weather.
It's just well, that's very true. It is what it is, right? So
Yeah.
you wrote The Millions Within. And I have read about, let's see, I've gotten about three-quarters of the way through it. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed reading it. I think we align on several of the things that are in my book, Build a Life, Not a Portfolio. And let me just take a minute so that everybody gets to know who you are, what it is that you do, why you wrote the book. Just take a couple minutes here and tell us about that.
Okay. Yeah. So I quit high school at 17 and just kind of, I wanted to escape the life that I was in. It wasn't horrific, but it was not what I wanted. I wanted to go find something different. And I took a lot of different trails. I ended up getting married during that time, having a couple of children, and quickly found out that I had created more responsibility than my financial capability was capable of, so to speak. And I mean, we started going through some really rough times. We woke up one morning, our car was repossessed. We ended up filing bankruptcy. We had to move in the middle of the night because we couldn't afford where we were living. We found ourselves on food stamps. It was bad. And I said to myself, okay, I've got to fix this. I don't know how to fix it, but I got to fix it. So what's the problem? And I thought to myself, the problem was I quit high school, didn't get any further education, so I wasn't qualified to get a better job. So I said, okay, I got to figure out how do I do that? I have to go back to school. This is all before the internet. Um, but here was the issue. I wasn't making enough money, and I was working 6.5 days a week, not making enough money. So I was like, how am I going to make more money and get more time to be able to go back to school to fix this? So I tried every scheme I could come up with for 2 years to try to figure out a way to make money in the side. Like I even got a broken down truck with a plow on it because I lived in Chicago, and then it didn't snow. So it was like if it could go wrong, it went wrong, right?
Yeah.
So for 2 years, it just kept getting worse. One night, I was having one of the worst days I've ever experienced. Had a meltdown at work. I drove a forklift. I was loading food in the back of this truck. Everything was crazy. And I just started crying. And I said, God, please help me. Show me what to do. I don't know what to do. And I can't take this anymore. I'm at the end of my rope. And a voice in my head said, David, change your attitude. And it was as clear as if you were standing next to me in that truck. And I stopped and I looked around for a minute. Regained my composure, and I started thinking about the idea. Then I went back to work. I was continuing to work through the evening, and I was thinking to myself, what does that mean to change my attitude? So I decided to pick somebody that I thought that I could relate to on some level, which happened to be the owner of the company that I worked for. And I said, what's the difference between this guy and me? And I came up with three things. He must have loved what he did. I hated what I did. He must have done a really good job. I did not do a good job. I worked to go home. I hated what I was doing. I didn't care. I was raised in an environment where people said you don't get paid to do extra. Like it was a real kind of a union, the worker, the man is the enemy type of a thing.
Right.
I was very entitled, and I was so angry and hurt, and humiliated. I started taking it out on other people, which really wasn't my character, but that's where I was at that point in my life. So I said, I'm going to start acting like I love what I do every job to the best of my ability, and start treating people with total respect. In 30 days, my income tripled. I went from 20,000 a year to 62,000 a year. And that set me on a path because I was so flabbergasted by what happened. I was like, I don't understand how this could possibly be happening to me. I didn't even know anybody that made 62,000. I mean, the median income where I came from in Chicago was 20 grand. People were working class individuals. And here I am making 62, early 90s. And I said, I'm going to start studying. So I turned my car into an audio library, cassette tapes. I was listening to books on tape, biographies on tape, Tony Robbins on tape, everything I could get my hands on. And over a period of 7 years, I started transforming myself into a different person. At the end of the 90s, 1999, I started this business, Life Is Now, which I'm the owner and president of. And we've been in business this year. This will be our 26th year in business. And basically what we do is we consult and coach business owners, small to medium business owners, on improving their life and their income and really getting their mind right so that they can go out and live the dream that they started their business to begin with for. So that's a lot of information in a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating. And a couple of things I picked up from that. Number one, over a period of 7 years. So it's not an overnight process. Number one is one thing that I picked up.
Right.
The
Well, but
tape,
here's the thing, though. Here's the crazy thing about it. No, it was not an overnight process, but the thing that sparked my interest in it happened basically overnight, within 30 days,
yeah. See
which is
that I
like,
really want to
what?
go back and revisit. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
tell me a little
So,
bit more about that. How
okay.
do you go from 30 to 60 that quickly? Especially you had a union job. That's really hard. So something changed in there.
So I didn't have a union job, but I was about to step into one. That's what allowed me to triple my income. There
Okay.
was a guy, his name was Drew Batty. He lived in Whiting, Indiana, and he worked for what we call an on-site fuel delivery company. So it's tanker trucks that go out to construction jobs and they deliver fuel. They go to emergency generators and deliver fuel. They go to the railroad and deliver fuel. And they also go to trucking companies and deliver fuel, both in the trucks and in the trailers if they're refrigerated or heated trailers, which we had both, right? The trucks and the trailers. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he would come. And part of my job was to give him a list of the trucks that needed to be filled and the trailers that needed to be filled. So I knew this guy over a period of 2 years. And we would always just, talk a little bit, like we weren't best buddies. We didn't go out or anything, but we got to know each other. And he knew that I had, in those days, I had managed to get myself a license to drive a truck, but it was like a catch 22. You get a license to drive a truck, but any company that's going to pay anything requires 5 years over the road experience to hire you, right? So, how do you get the experience if nobody will hire you? And basically, what it is you got to work for a really bad company for a long
For
period of
5 years.
time, make no money for 5 years, and then maybe get hired. So, it was a real issue. It was I didn't make that up in my mind. That's the way it was. I think it's still that way today to some degree. But he would say to me, have you found anything yet? No, no, no. And I hate working here and all this. And then when I changed, all of a sudden one day he came to me, he said, when are you going to get out of here? I said, Drew, as soon as I can find something, I'm out of here. He said, why don't you come to work for us? We're hiring. And I'm not proud of this, but I was judging this man based off my low self-esteem, okay? And what he did. First of all, I thought to myself, I don't want to drive a fuel truck. That's a bomb on wheels. He carries gasoline and diesel fuel. What if it? And I literally said to him, John, I said, tell me something, dude. I go, has anybody ever been killed right where you work? And he goes, yeah, last year. He goes, a guy rolled a truck on I-65 in Indiana and burned to death. I'm like, Sam, that's exactly what I mean. Why would I want to come there and drive? So we went through like chapter and verse of what the company was and what it did. And I'm looking for every reason to say no to him. Last question I asked him was, and I mean, talk about arrogant, John. I was like the epitome. If you looked it up in the dictionary, it'd have been a picture of me. I go, besides that, how much could you possibly be make driving this? Now, I'm looking at what this guy does from like this job sucks. The truck is dirty. He always smells like diesel fuel. He's out there if it's pouring rain, 98 degrees and humidity, 2 feet of snow, below zero all year long. He's out there. At least I'm on a dock. And he looks me in my eye and he goes, "Well, last year I made 50." And I went, "Get out of here. You didn't make no 50 grand." He said, "Well, I'm coming next Tuesday. I'll bring you a check stub." He came the next Tuesday. He brought me the check stubs. Sure enough, he made 50. So now I'm interested. Like I've never even thought of making 50 before. I was hoping that someday I could get to 40. And here I am walking into something that's instantly more. And I said, "What's the downside?" He said, "The downside is that because it's a union company, you're going to start at the bottom of seniority. And sometimes there's up to 7 month layoff in the wintertime." And I thought, I went back and forth over this. I talked to my wife. I was scared to death. And I thought, you know something? Maybe I won't get laid off. And if I do, I'll figure it out when it happens. But it is an obvious step out of where I am now. And I took it. And number one, I never got laid off. And because I was at the bottom, it was a blessing. I got all the overtime because I had the worst routes, which I was ecstatic to get because I was like, "Show me the money. I'll do anything you guys want." Because of that attitude, in that 7 year period of time, I went to the top of the company. I was the only driver ever promoted into management, and I was in charge of expanding that company across the country when I left to go start my own business.
That's that sound. I mean, it's not the same path that I took. So I grew up in West Virginia and a product of the West Virginia school system, and this is a long time ago. So I was a solid C- student. I mean, really good,
I'm right there with you.
and and the suggestion was from the guidance counselors, "Hey, you know what? You took this little personality test. You should be a farmer, but you are just not college material." And my sister had gone to college, and my other sister had gotten a 2 year degree. And this was back before it was like almost seemed like a requirement, to go to college and all that. But I'm going to go to college. And the best way to get me to do something was to tell me that I can't do it. That is the number one best way to get me to be able. And my wife, unfortunately, knows this, so that's how she gets me to do things I actually don't want to do. She's pretty good at it. So I applied. I got in on academic probation. I managed to. The first year was horrible because I had no idea how to study. I had never studied before. I didn't have the background information. I was in remedial everything. And suddenly, by spending like every seemed like every waking minute in the library, I suddenly started to get better grades. I started to actually enjoy some of it. And then I fast forward, I got out of school back in 91. And in 91, as a business major, you couldn't buy a job. I mean, it was tough out there because again, had no experience. How much experience do you have? Oh, sorry, we're looking for somebody with experience. Same deal.
Same deal, yeah.
So I put roofs on sheds. I mowed grass, did whatever I had to do to make anything. And my wife was making me feel bad because she got a sign-on bonus. She was a nursing major. I finally landed this job based on, like so often is you have a friend who has a friend. And
Yeah.
so I managed to land this job. It was on the phones. How can I help you? How can I help you in the customer service? And then I started just volunteering for everything that everybody else didn't want to do. It's kind of the same type of story. And eventually there was a rule you had to stay in the customer service department for 2 years. They let me break that rule by 2 months, and I moved into an analyst position and then again just volunteered for everything nobody wanted to do. And that's how I kind of got to where I was on Wall Street and ended up running a division and managing billions of dollars in portfolio. And people that I grew up with are like, "Who are you? what
Yeah.
happened?" And then now, people told me, "Well, I gave up way too much of my life though to Wall Street. I will say that." And that's where the book came from, Build a Life, Not a Portfolio. And so when I stopped doing the Wall Street thing and said, I'm going to start my own firm, everybody I talked to said, don't do that. There's no way you can compete as an individual registered investment advisory firm. So, of course,
That's what you
that's what
did.
I did. And so Guardian Rock Wealth is now a little over 5 years old, and we're plugging away. And we've just decided this is what we want to do, and we want to do it for people who wouldn't normally get the type of service I feel like they deserve. So that idea of it's not overnight, and you do the work, but man, within, and you have something in your book too that said when you go from a mindset of I want to make X number of dollars per year to the mindset that I want to make that much per month. I wanted to talk to you about that because I've heard that from some other people. And, that comes under the category of it's really hard for the average individual to believe.
Yeah, oh,
So
totally.
tell me more about that idea.
Well, so my first interest obviously came when my income tripled. But then in 1996, I met my mentor, who was Bob Proctor. And he kept putting it in my head that I could turn my annual income into a monthly income. And I was studying with him like like crazy. When I decided to start my own business, he challenged me. And when I started the business, within the first few months, I was making about 50,000, the equivalent of 50,000 a year. And he said, "Why don't you turn that into an annual income or a monthly income?" Right? The way he said it was, he goes, "It's easier to make 50,000 a month than 50,000 a year, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, for you it is." Like that was like a
Yes.
dream. Like, yeah, yeah. So he kept saying that to me, and I challenged myself to do it. I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to do this." And for the first 2 months, I failed terribly at it. And I would go back to him and he would say, "How did you do?" And I said, "Terrible, absolutely terrible." And he kept saying to me, because he was an interesting mentor back in the day when I worked with him. He would not necessarily tell you what to do, but he would get you to think. Like he taught you how to think so that you could align yourself with the right ideas.
Those are the
And he's
best teachers. Best
100%.
teachers. Yeah.
Yeah. He said to me, again, he said, "It's easier to make 50,000 a month than 50,000 a year." He said, "David, why would you work all year for 50,000 when you could do it in a month?" He goes, "I wouldn't even get out of bed for 50,000." He goes, and he kept telling me it's easier. Now, I thought he was joking with me, like, "Ha ha, it's easier. I hope you get to where I am someday." But after the second month, he said, "I told you it was easier." He goes, "One day you'll get it." And he hangs up the phone. And I start thinking to myself, it's easier. It's easier. I said, "Okay, so if it's easier, what would this look like if it was the easiest it could possibly be?" And I thought, well, I'd have one client for 50,000.
Sure.
And when I thought that, I was like, "Oh my God, there's no way this math that I have is ever going to work." I was charging $395 at the time for a person to go to a seminar. And I thought, okay, I don't think I could charge 50,000, but with the results I have, I could easily charge 15,000. And I was nervous about that. I
Sure.
changed my price. I changed what I was doing within my company, and in 2 weeks, I hit 50,000 and never went back. From there, we took it over 1 million, and it's consistently moved forward ever since that day, 26 years ago. And I got it. I totally got it. The part was that it's not that, well, first of all, I was making it hard because my whole life, the formula for success was work harder. And it actually worked for me. When I went to work for the petroleum company, I worked my tail off in order to get ahead. So in my mind, if I'm gonna do better, I got to work harder than anybody else. And that was my approach when I started the business, and it was the wrong approach. I did not understand what it meant to work easier, and I didn't understand what it meant to leverage. And I didn't understand what it meant to be able to kind of bend time in the idea of what it is that you're doing. So one night in, I think it was around 2010, something like that, I was sitting with a bunch of folks. We were having a really great dinner in Las Vegas after an event that I did. And I was talking about the book that I was writing, and I said, let's talk. Can we talk around the table ideas for a name for the book?" And a friend of mine When it got to her, she goes, the millions within. She says, that's what you do. You help people find the millions within. And I'm like, that's the name for the book. And that's what I do. I mean, we help with all different kinds of things. Like kind of like full spectrum house with helping people with their business. But from a mindset perspective and understanding how to do it, that's what we focus on the most, helping people accomplish whatever they want financially in their life through the medium of their business.
Yeah. And it's not about, so I talk about this in my book. It's not so much about what you want, but why you want it, and getting that defined well in your mind so you don't hate what you do. Right? Am I
Yeah.
right on that?
Yeah. I do say, though, the most important question you will ever ask yourself honestly is, what do you want in this lifetime? Because we're taught we're not allowed to have what we want. So most people never address it. What they do is they look at what they want based on the choices that society presents them. And they think, okay, I'll choose the best of the worst type of a situation. But they don't really know what they truly want in their heart. I think God leads us that way through desire, through like the desire that won't go away, the thing that we're pulled toward, the thing that we love to do. If we would acknowledge that, it would grow because I think that, I mean, here's the thing. Every other form of life knows exactly what it is, exactly what it's supposed to do, and it doesn't doubt it, right? Human beings are the only ones. Why? And when I was a kid, I was raised Catholic and I used to do the catechism for a while. I went to Catholic school and grade school. And I would ask these questions and I would get reprimanded for asking them. They would not answer these questions. And I thought to myself, why? So this is early 70s, right? Why is it there are so many people around the world suffering? You know, um, and they could not answer, well, God moves in mysterious ways, this and that. And I would just get in trouble. But I thought to myself, either this whole idea about God is not true, or there is a God, but people are very confused about the message. But I didn't know what to do with that idea. I didn't revisit it again until those 7 years that I was studying, and that's when I began to learn. God did put a directional system inside of us. We're taught not to follow it, right? So once that gets in your subconscious, then you live for survival and security and certainty your whole life, and you don't step out and actually live the life that God put you here to live. That's my belief.
Oh, I really like what you said there, because once once I figured out that all the things that I had been through, which some of which were really tough, some of them were fantastic, were all preparing me for what God wanted me to do and be. And I had the desire in my heart, even though people were telling me I couldn't do it. God put that. He put that in my heart and in my head. Then, like I tell people today, right now, when you're starting a business, I'm not at my 7 years yet. Maybe when I have my 7 years, I'll be making that. I need to talk more with you how to make my annual income, my monthly income. But I'm not there yet. And I tell people it's a lot less lucrative, but a whole lot more fun. And that's kind of where I am right now. I'm just enjoying
Absolutely.
myself and enjoying what I do. And along the way, I can see the path that I could get exactly where you're saying. But
Either
I think we're
way,
responsible for our own beliefs, number one, right?
yeah. I mean, here's my belief. I don't, contrary to what it looks like and the book is called The Millions Within. What I focus on most with an individual when I'm coaching them is, what do they want? How do they want to live their life? But how much is it going to cost for them to be able to do it? Like, what's the income that they need to do it? It's not about, oh, get to 1 million, get to 10 million, get to 50 million. It's, what's the income that's right for you to live your purpose the way that you want to live it, and then show them how to do that. Right.
Yes.
So I don't think the same amount is the same amount for everybody. I think it depends on how you want to live your life. And that's between you and God.
That is so 100% true. I tell people this all the time. They come to me and they say, well, I need $1 million before I would retire. And then some people will tell me I have to have $10 million before I retire. And other people say, I've got 500 grand. Is that enough? And then I get asked, well, what is enough? And
Yeah.
it depends. You know, people hate this answer, but it depends. It depends on what you want, how you want to live your life, and then your beliefs. You're absolutely right too, because we're taught to believe that, especially when you grow up in middle class or maybe lower middle class, working class, or whatever. West Virginia, in my case, we were kind of not taught maybe directly, but it was in there that we're not supposed to be wealthy.
Right.
Earthly
100%.
wealth is not okay until you read like Solomon and you read about David, and then you're like, these guys were a little bit wealthy, just a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
and still there. You know, David was called a man after God's own heart, and
Right.
and they were clearly blessed.
Yeah, I think the biblical lesson around wealth is actually the opposite of what most people think. When it says that wealth is not a good thing, the love of money is the root of all evil. What the way that I read that and understand it is that when money is controlling the decisions that you make in your life and you're not following your purpose, then you've put another God before you, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't say, it's not that you can't be wealthy, it's that you don't make decisions. Like if God's saying, David, go do this, and I go, I can't afford to do that, I'm not trusting God, right? I'm making money my God, or lack of money my God. But if I stop doing that and I trust that both the direction will be fulfilled and the resources for the direction will be fulfilled, then both things show up. But I'm not making it based on money. I'm making it based on this is what's God's putting in my heart to actually do.
Hmm. There's a couple that I recently started working with, and he continually reminds me, and I know this is true because I've absolutely seen it. But they do very well, and they're trying to do make the right decisions to prepare for retirement when they don't do formal work anymore, but they have other plans of what they want to do. And he tells me this on a regular basis. He said, "Well, one thing I know you can't outgive God. I've tried." Yeah,
Right.
it's like, and you know what? You can see it in his life. You can absolutely see it.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
he is not the only one that I've seen that with either.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's fantastic. One of the things that I just really enjoy, I probably could talk to you. I can see us talking like pretty much all day. But we might lose some people on the podcast. But one thing that you had mentioned to me, you have an offer for our listeners here today
Yeah.
that they can go to that can explain what this really means. Because I think everybody in the audience would agree there is no way that we could boil down your, what is it, 30, 40 years of experience or
Right.
mine into 15 to 30 minutes on a podcast.
Right. Right.
But we may be able to start a little bit with at least get them a little bit more information. There's a link, and I'll put it down below in the show notes so everybody will have it as well. But tell us a little bit about what you're offering to folks, and it doesn't cost them anything, right?
No, no,
It's
no.
free.
It's complete gift. So it's called the Quantum Leap Blueprint, and here's what I encourage everybody to think about. I made this jump in the beginning in the early '90s without knowing anything, right? I didn't have a med, I had never read a book, not outside of like school, nothing. And I made this jump because I followed just some direction inside of me. Anybody can make the jump, whether it's financial or it's situational in their life. God has already prepared you for the next level, and it's beyond what the logical generally seems. So this free gift is about how do you do that, right? How can you make the jump from where you are to the next major level that you want to go to? And then if you want to check us out after that and work with us further, that's fine, but you don't even have to. My suggestion is just take it with an open mind because sometimes people will say to me, "Well, I don't have a union company to go to, or I don't have my own business, or we don't have certain reasons." Like it has nothing to do with any of that. It doesn't matter what you have. It matters what you think and what you're willing to step into as far as your own life, what you really want, what you think is important. That's what that's about. It'll help anybody move to the next level. Doesn't matter where you are.
Right. Boy, I can't stress that enough. I've just seen it too many times not to believe it anymore. But I also hear over and over again these limiting beliefs, these like I can't do this because of this, and it's this whole long list of excuses that we all tell ourselves, myself included,
Yeah,
right? That myself, and I still find myself falling back into that. I can't do that because this, and that's just an excuse. You have to decide, you have to believe it is possible, and
that's it right there. That's what
yeah,
God told us. We can do anything if we believe it. The
that's right.
question is, how do you believe something, right? So we get into that in that gift that I'm giving you.
Okay, very good. Well, go to that link. It's down below. It's absolutely free. I actually followed the link before we got on the podcast, and it's easy. Uh, just have to, what do you email it, right? So it just comes
Yeah,
straight to their email. So
yeah, yeah,
that's all you have to do. I think even in there, you don't have to put in a phone number. You can put in a phone number. You don't have to.
yeah. I'm not sure what the setup is on it like that,
Yeah,
but yeah, just check it out. It won't cost you anything. It'll just bless your life.
yeah. Again, trying to give something back to people, right? I mean,
A
it's just
hundred
that's
percent.
what it really is about. So,
Yeah.
well, I really appreciate you taking some time. I know you're super busy and taking some time with us today, and the audience that watches Build a Life, the Build a Life podcast. And again, if they want to get in touch with you directly, though, what's the best way to do that?
Well, they could go to davidneagle.com or they could check out our website, the Successful Mind podcast. We've had a very successful podcast for years. Those would be the best places, right? And again, it won't cost you anything. If you go to our website, you can listen to all this great information that we share for free with people. And again, and then if that resonates with you and you want to work with us closer, then reach out. We're happy to talk to you about what might be a fit for you.
Right. And folks that are regular watchers of the Building Your Life podcast, you know that the best way to reach out to me is at guardianrockwealth.com, or if you text the word life, LIFE, to 321-421-5213, you're going to get all kinds of free information. And we don't really hold back. If you don't really want to work with us or anything else, there is plenty of information. Now, it's a lot of information. It can be overwhelming on our YouTube page or on the videos that we provide, on the written things that we provide, however you like to learn, it's out there. So take advantage of that. Believe that you can live your best life using the tool that we call money, in my case, and using your mindset to create the money or the tool that you need, and take advantage of this free stuff that's out there. I mean, we'd love to give it to you. That's what both David and I are all about, making you enjoy your best life. Right.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, David, I'm going to let you go. And everybody, we will see you again on the next Building Your Life podcast. Thanks for listening.